Hello again, food enthusiasts. My name is Chris Rachkowski, your host today for the FutureFoodCast, where we talk with the thought leaders in today's food industry and discuss the trends and technologies that will shape the future of food. Very happy to be speaking today with Adi Ojha, the COO of FoodFund. Welcome to the program today, Adi.
Thank you so much, Chris. Pleasure meeting with you.
Excellent. Lisa, I'd like to start getting into these podcasts with exciting people like yourself, is really learning about who you were before your current activities. What were you doing that brought you up to getting started with the FoodFund?
Yeah, Chris, that's an interesting journey, to be honest. I'm from India. I did my mechanical engineering from there. As a young kid, I was always brought up with very strong values. My grandfather happened to be in the agriculture industry, and I always used to hear about how not to waste food, even at dinner table. The last grain of rice was supposed to be finished on your plate as well, nothing to be thrown out. So I was grown with those kind of values and that kind of mind frame of making an impact in whatever I do. The very first job that I had was with Andritz Hydro, which was in renewable sources of energy. They were into building hydro turbines back in India. I was a quality inspector over there. I learned a lot about the business, and I really understood what kind of resources are used and what kind of impact they have in the community. Later on, I decided to pursue management and business administration. The best opportunity that I was looking for was to explore the western side of the world. So I decided to pursue that here in Canada. I'm a DeGroote McMaster alumni. I pursued that between the years of 2015 to 2017. There were a lot of things that I learned across, my tenure, and one of the key factors that helped. My cousin brother and I were, driving one day, and we realized that there was a person standing at a board saying that they are hungry and homeless. And not too few red lights away, we saw a big superstore throwing out a lot of food. Back then, I was just struggling with, getting a job or making a career of what I had pursued in the last 2 years. And on discussing what was the idea back in January 2017, I started taking a deep thought on what we could do as entrepreneurs in the community. Keeping that thought in mind, we did some research with farmers, and we realized that a lot of food is wasted on the basis of their cosmetic imperfections and sometimes just grown in surplus. And that was a thought that was a concept which was very rare to me, because back in India, we never saw peppers or tomatoes which were perfect size or perfect shape or in the perfect condition. Digging deep in, I realized that the number one produce was always exported to countries like Canada, US, and Europe. What we see in the grocery store is not actually what is grown. Or the best part of it really comes out for display, and that's how the consumer behavior is. So when I saw these produce, it reminded me of home, and I was like, I've had that. There's nothing wrong with it, and I just thought that probably it's time to put that in display for consumers to put their mouth where their money is.
Yeah.
FoodFund came into existence in 2017, and here we are 4 years later, still trying to cater.
So you have an amazing family background, as well as education, work experience, both on multiple areas in the world that were really formative for you getting started in this current company of FoodFund. And tell us more about what's going on with FoodFund.
FoodFund, I'll just quickly introduce in a line or so. We basically are an imperfect grocery delivery service. What we do is we gather fruits, vegetables, and other grocery items from either greenhouses, farmers, manufacturers, or wholesalers. And we get it to a warehouse, and we put it in a box, and we deliver it to households. Now, customers like yourselves can go onto the website, and they can curate their own specific subscription. It's a weekly subscription by default. However, we offer benefits such as no contract. You're not obligated to buy it every week. If there's some leftovers from last week, you can skip certain weeks if you wish to. And the best part is that you can choose exactly what you want week after week. Over the years, we have realized that the most important thing for the customer is to really be available with all the items that they really need. And that's what we have tried to develop over the last 4 years. The best thing about all the items that you're purchasing is they have a kind of a story behind them. As I mentioned before, certain imperfections such as not meeting standards or certain potatoes being bigger in size or smaller in size than the specifications. So that's what you get. You get surplus items, something that the farmers grew but they could not sell. That's where we come in. Certain logistical issues such as barcode errors or transportational damages, something on those lines. Those are also kind of the stories that we have behind the items that we source. On a weekly basis, you basically just keep recurring the subscription and you get your items to your door. We've been in existence for the last 4 years. We started off in 2017. We have recently moved into the GTA area, which is the biggest city in Ontario. We have had a lot of good response in the smaller cities like London or Waterloo, Hamilton, Burlington as well. And one of the biggest reasons why consumers associate themselves with the brand FoodFund is because of the mission behind the company, which is leading a sustainable lifestyle and having a conscious decision of putting your money where you can really contribute to the community.
It's an amazing story, and really it's not only great for the producers, the farmers, but also, of course, the consumers. When I first heard about FoodFund, I thought, oh, it must be a not-for-profit organization. This sounds very interesting. But in fact, you're a for-profit company that has essentially found a niche in the market that has not been taken care of. It's a situation where product that is valuable and can be sold is in many cases landfilled, thrown away. But you're now taking that and creating valuable products, both adding revenue essentially straight to the bottom line to the producer, but also providing to people, it seems, what they want, which is participating in a more sustainable food supply chain. Is that sort of a reasonable summary of what you're doing?
Just to add to that, if I may, 2017 was a year when I believe that all these trends were in line, and all that we keep discussing is how the land is becoming short of more growing, and the capacity or the consumption of food is increasing over the years. What we do not realize is, are we even able to use the existing supply that we have? And that's a thought that should be helping us bridging the gap between the scarcity in the world when it comes to food, rather than thinking about how can we generate more land to more fertile or grow more food.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just optimizing what we already have, because you've actually created a business on which was once a waste stream of perfectly good quality food. Now, in the current state of your business, are you mostly looking at local sourcing in Ontario or around the Toronto area, or are you going beyond other regions?
Yeah, as you mentioned, it's a win-win scenario for both the aggregators of this business, either ourselves or the suppliers or the consumers for that matter. Which means that any locality that we are serving, we are sourcing imperfect produce or supply from the farmers that are nearby. It just makes more sense. Local is our always first priority. Of course, we live in Canada, so it kind of becomes difficult in the winter months, but that's why we have, some certain greenhouses as our partners, which help us supply food throughout the year. So our very first go-to will always be the local supplier, and by local supplier, I don't mean, Leamington for London and Toronto. It means Alliston for Toronto, Leamington for London, Waterloo for the Waterloo location. So those kind of things actually been very beneficial for us, where we are able to create this hyper-local model wherever we go. We try and reduce all the carbon footprints that is practically possible. Of course, we are here to maintain a good logistics and supply chain, but it just makes more business sense as well to be as local as possible.
Now, I guess on the supply side, are your suppliers typically the primary producers, farmers, or are they, for example, grocery chains that might have, produce, fruits and vegetables that they aren't able to use, or is it a mixture?
Not yet. I would say the grocery partners are still not there. I know that there are a lot of companies out there that do this, where they provide a platform for, either yet to or soon to expiry products that can go off the shelf quickly. I think that's a great model as well. We haven't really tapped into that kind of a structure yet. So we currently deal only with growers or wholesalers. So we talk about, Ontario Food Terminal pumping out almost 6 million pounds of food. A percent of supply here and there can lead to so much wastage. So we're just trying to sort that problem out first. At the source. By the time that it reaches grocery store and it is going to waste, unfortunately, that's probably the end of life. So the produce or the grocery products that we have are not the, black spot bananas or, the moldy tomatoes or the overripe tomatoes. They're perfectly good tomatoes, just imperfect in size. That's it.
Okay.
Probably not the red tomatoes. They are off red. Or, a red delicious apple is not typically red in color.
Okay, so that I think clarifies the upstream side of your business and supply chain. Now, it sounds like on the downstream side of your business, the consumers, you have a platform that allows individuals like myself to purchase these fruits and vegetables. Do you sell primarily to individuals, or do you also have, for example, restaurants or other types of sort of intermediaries that might be selling to a final consumer?
We've been on that journey, a long time ago. Unfortunately, our technology infrastructure does not help us to really provide the value that the restaurants are looking for. However, there are a lot of local restaurants that do not require that kind of sophistication and are ready to, tolerate certain ups and downs. They are our partners and we do supply to certain restaurants, but not on a large scale yet. We are looking at, produce which is not available throughout the year and we cannot guarantee whether that would be there. So, households like yourselves can tolerate a green pepper instead of a yellow pepper sometimes. So we do not specify the kind of apples that you'll be getting. You might get Empires today, you might get Red Delicious the other day. However, when it comes to restaurants, they are pretty particular with it. And our business model does not really gel in with them. And that is where the biggest problem comes, where, they're looking for a very specific kind of a broccoli, not a broccoli crown, they're looking for a broccoli bunch. And that's where the problem comes. But there are a couple of restaurants that tolerate that kind of things and are happy to partner with us.
Yeah, I think, for quite some time now, the more forward-thinking restaurants are maybe more focused on instead of matching what comes on a plate with what picture on a menu for the 500 restaurant chain with here's what's fresh today, here's what's available today, and therefore that's what we're cooking today, and that's what the consumers can purchase today. So it sounds like you're already finding these sort of independent restaurants that do match nicely with your, what you're able to provide.
Yes, I don't know whether this will happen again, because I remember my grandfather telling me where they used to go to restaurants where there was no menu. The server will come to you and tell you what's on the menu on that day. And I wish those days come back where, we don't have a preset menu. We just serve what is fresh and what is available.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is, I think to have that experience, you maybe have to pay $100 a plate, because those are the very high-end restaurants where the chef determines what you're going to eat versus what the customer determines what they're going to eat. But you've also touched on some interesting areas that we like to discuss in this program on the technology side. Clearly, you've fully got the sustainability side covered. Your entire business is based on sustainability in the supply chain and actually using product that would be wasted. But as you're describing, there's always some challenges on the technical implementation. And maybe tell us more about the challenges you face, and then we can explore, how do we resolve those challenges?
Yes, Chris. Technology is becoming so advanced these days, and it is so difficult for, small entrepreneurs or small businesses to really adapt to these methodologies and, really provide a customer with the experience that they are so used to through the bigger companies worldwide. So, if you look at Amazon, the kind of experience that you have there, just going onto the app and exactly the app knows what you need to buy. That kind of a sophistication really comes as a big cost, which really the small businesses cannot afford at these days. And at the same time, I would like to mention that there are a lot of companies that are trying to mitigate this gap by providing, custom kind of a solution. However, nobody has currently explored that option in the grocery industry yet. because the kind of commodity that we're dealing with has a life and very short life. So we're not selling nuts and bolts out here where you can keep it in the stock and trigger the customer's mind to purchase it. We're looking at grocery item which happens to be so personal. So on that side, it really becomes kind of difficult to let our customers know what is available. And thank God for the customers that we have. They're so patient and tolerant because of the way the business model is. You really need to adapt to the 18th century or the 17th century kind of a mindset where you don't know what kind of apple you're getting. So that is the technology front that we are currently facing, where we are not able to update it on live terms, where we could let our customers know that this is the stuff that is going to come in, so you can make last minute changes. Furthermore, the supply chain is becoming an issue where customers are very used to getting everything in the next hour, next 5 minutes sometimes. We talk about a company called Gorilla in Europe, where the groceries will be delivered to you in the next 45 minutes, or there will be a discount, or a pizza gets delivered to you within 25 minutes. And that kind of a supply chain is coming at a cost, and not just financially. And that's where we are struggling with technology. Not able to provide customers with the kind of luxury that they're used to, which I find it hard to educate everybody. That grocery store will send you stuff in the next 45. They will have to put in so much effort and so much logistics into it. Today we have nutrition labels on every package, and all of us are aware of it, that this wasn't there. If we talk about 15 years ago, 20 years ago, this was not even a thing. And now we have all the nutritional facts over there. I'm waiting for the day when in the next 2 years, 3 years, or 5 years, we see that there's a carbon footprint label over there on the well. And that is something which will help you make a purchase decision. Just like nutrition label is helping you not buy a $2 granola bar, but a $4 granola bar, which is organic and more nutritional because you can see it right there. Tomorrow, your decision-making criteria where you will look at the carbon footprint as well, that this has traveled 5,000 kilometers in a ship from the other countries.
Right.
So that's where the technology part we are struggling with, to really provide customers with an experience, but not at the cost of the environment.
Yeah. And this brings up another interesting topic that we see sometimes, which is supply chain transparency. Now, your supply chain is pretty short, and it seems in most cases, there's really three entities. There's the farmer, there's FoodFund, your company, and then there's the consumer. Leave out the logistics piece for the moment. But people have shown it seems a strong interest in understanding where their food comes from, who's producing it, do they trust that producer, what part of the world is it coming from? And you have an interesting twist on your business, as you described. One of your customers might buy apples, but they may not know what type of apples they're going to get, and they can be okay with that. But do you see an opportunity, for essentially creating additional comfort and interest from your consumers, even if they don't know if they're going to get a red or a green apple? If they have transparency on where it came from, they might even be happier because they know it's coming from local supplier, farmer X, and they feel comfortable with that. Do you see that as an opportunity for your company?
Definitely, and we are working as we speak on a platform which is more advanced than the current one, and I've clearly laid it out where the products will have the supply chain or the transparency of origin and whatnot with it. While we discuss that within my operations team, that is exactly what we're discussing as the day passes. Where should we draw the line on transparency when it comes to when we even don't know what kind of supply are we going to get? I wish that I could get a cauliflower which is from a farmer Dan nearby. I don't know whether that farmer will have the cauliflower on that week or not. And at that point of time, there might be a call from my supplier at the terminal that will say that a batch of cauliflower from California is going to waste. And that has happened in the past. This is a true example where I've purchased cauliflower at ridiculous prices and offered to the customers, but they happened to be from California while there was local actually available. And that's when you start to question what kind of transparency will actually help. And this is not that I'm trying to justify hiding certain things, I'm just trying to justify how much information will help the customer to make a decision. They get to know that the cauliflower is from California and they do not want to purchase it. Good for them. Very good for them. But at that point of time, I just feel that the cauliflower from California is actually going to waste, and that's 1,500 liters of water that will go down the drain. Are we really aware of that? Whereas a local cauliflower supplier will be able to sell that cauliflower at least to somebody else. And if not, and that is where, my second thought comes in, where there's a second stream of revenue that we have. There's a second stream of operations that we have, where there's a lot of food that is donated to local communities every week. So a local supplier cauliflower, which I did not purchase this week to sell it to the customers, I hope that the following day or two, I am going to divert that into the food community that we have. And this is what we are struggling with, to be honest, with the transparency of logistics and supply chain. With every minute things changing, it becomes kind of difficult. So either I can guarantee that the cauliflower will be local, or I can guarantee that the cauliflower which you're going to use is going to be true to our ethos, which is not being wasted.
Yeah. I can even imagine that there's another, if you will, permutation on this business model, in that you have customers that enjoyed buying cauliflower from farmer X, and when they come back a week or two later, that's not available. But they say, well, I thought farmer X produced good quality. What's he selling this week?
Yeah.
And there you may be able to provide transparency back to, okay, not even the product, but the source. And essentially, you're that nexus point for connecting a consumer to a producer, not because the consumer wants cauliflower, but because the consumer wants to purchase from that producer. Do you see that in your future?
Yes, definitely. At all times, Chris, the number one thing that I can always guarantee that the FoodFund subscriber will always put their dollar towards a sustainable, non-wasteful kind of system. Will they put all their money towards local? I cannot guarantee that at all times, and unfortunately, because of the country that we live in. For example, in today's time, I cannot offer local broccoli because that's not in season. So overall, I can definitely guarantee certain things, for the consumers that we have, and we try and have an open chat with them through our emails every week. But that is where an efficient technology system can really communicate with the customers today. Where my website will be able to give them a prompt notification that A, B, C, D items in your box are local, E, F, G are not. Mm-hmm. A, B, C, D have this story and E, F, G have this. So that kind of a model will really help us in the future, where it's as transparent as possible for the consumers to make a decision.
Interesting. Well, again, I guess, especially for small, medium-sized companies, one of the barriers to achieving all this, or at least not a pure barrier, it slows things down, is essentially access to that technology. Although you personally have great background on the technology side, your current company is not really a tech company. You're not maybe having a big dev team to support all this. Where do you go to find your solutions, or do you still find that you essentially have to develop this in-house?
Very interesting. This is how I put FoodFund as. It's a trifecta of logistics, food, and technology. Over the last 4 years, we have successfully overcome barriers on logistics and food, and thank God to the suppliers that we have, the farmers that we deal with, and even the logistics teams that we deal with. To the extent that our suppliers help us store food sometimes, just because there was an error, and store food for a week or so in dairy for us at no cost. And this is where we are in today's world, in the 21st century. Everybody is so willing to help out each other, where you need to step out and ask for help. Number one, that's the criteria that you need to be in. And see that you're up to something good, they'll definitely help you. And that is exactly what happened with our dev team and the technology side. Over the years, we have been we started off with Shopify, one of the most loved companies in Canada, especially for startup entrepreneurs, where we were using their platform for our website hosting needs. In between, we struggled during the COVID times when the demand increased so much that we were unable to offer certain things. So we moved, we outsourced it to an agency back in India, and the website that is being hosted as of now comes from there. However, in the last 6 months, we have hired a development team, and one of my close associates, Atul, who sits in the US, he has had a lot of experience in technology, has taken to work on a pro bono basis as a CTO. So we have started a developing team in the last 6 months, and the product should be out probably in the first quarter of next year. However, saying all these things, there's one thing that hasn't changed since the last 4 years, and that is your hunger to learn. So either me or Divi, we are always trying to add new skills to our set. So even if neither of us is a coder by profession, but we still know a lot of things technology-wise of how to move around certain things and adapt to change. So we have kind of bootstrapped it for the last 3-4 years, but I think it's time now where bootstrapping it is not the most solution.
Yeah, I understand. Well, we've talked a lot about your actual suppliers and the customers, and then sort of the technology that you're developing that makes all this possible. But one thing we haven't talked about is the logistics side. And I'm curious how you manage the logistics side. Essentially, your business is a pure e-commerce business. And what are you doing to fill the gap with the logistics system? It's probably far too financially burdensome to have your own logistics infrastructure. How do you solve that?
It's been a challenge, especially when you're dealing with food. The number one thing that we think about is the cost associated or the capital associated with running this kind of a model. Over the years, we worked on a lot of things, and the number one was reducing the lead time to the T. That has been the number one focus, where the amount of time that it takes for any of the items that reaches our warehouse to the time that it reaches your door has to be within that 12 to 16 hour period, which means you might just get a sweet corn that was picked on the day today in the morning. We got that at 7 a.m. That box was packed and that was brought to your door at 9 a.m. So that was picked just today in the morning. That is how least lead time is what we are able to gather. The number one benefit or the number one contributor to this, I would always mention, our local farmers. They really go out of the way to help us out. We are able to use their infrastructure. We are able to use their logistics, where, they might be just going out to deliver, trailer load of tomatoes to our neighboring superstore, and they'll just put a skid of, things that we need for today, and they'll just drop off. Or there are other logistic partners who deal with trucks or reefers that we use to gather or pick up small loads of items from different farms. And again, the ideology here was kind of difficult to manage, just because we have, say for example, if we have 500 orders to fulfill today, so what kind of inventory would we be needing on hand? Because it's not that I can take a skid of sweet corn and keep it for the next 2 weeks. So that is where Divi and I sat down, and if you look at our website, everything has been converted into number of pieces, which means that you will not be buying 2 pounds of bananas, you will be getting 6 pieces or 10 pieces of bananas. We have calculated everything in the number of pieces, which really help the customers as well, and that's the feedback that we get, where they're able to budget their entire week. So they'll get 3 pieces of bananas and 3 pieces of apples, and they'll have that as breakfast every day in the morning. What it does to the customer is this. What it does to us is that we're able to calculate the number of pieces that we would need for that inventory on that day. And that's where our logistics partner come in, and the supplier as well, where we're able to tell them not the pounds, number of pieces that we would need every day. It helps us reduce food wastage. It helps the consumers plan better of their week, and it helps manage the logistics on our end on a weekly basis.
Yeah, well, again, I as you can see, I'm quite impressed by the business that you've developed, not only from a technology point of view and how you're actually solving these difficult problems of identifying your suppliers, providing for your customers, managing the logistics all in between that, and providing the technology platforms that are really necessary to make all this happen. But you in fact created this business out of not even out of nothing, but out of a situation where the actual products you're selling would have been wasted before. And that's really such a great example, I think, for what we're trying to help highlight here on this podcast, which is this collision of entrepreneurship and sustainable development, and how technology is facilitating sustainable development in the food space. And really a great big congratulations to you and the rest of the FoodFund team for what you're doing.
Thank you so much, Chris, for those nice words, and definitely my team. I'm a big fan of whoever joins FoodFund team, and they really put in a lot of blood and sweat, and they really help us out.
Excellent. Well, I think we should come back to this again in the first half of next year and really dive into the technology side a bit more. It sounds like you're moving in that direction also. So, we'll keep in touch and plan for that. But thank you very much for being with us on the program today.
Thank you so much, Chris. It was an honor to be here, and thank you so much for the kind words and allowing me to speak on such a good platform.
Thanks for listening to FutureFoodCast. FutureFoodCast is powered by Farm to Plate, the leading food blockchain platform. Subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts to stay up to date with the very latest innovations in the food industry.